Hello, and welcome to my channel, RachAquarelle. Today I'm doing another video for my holiday art series, and this time I'm also going to be doing an illustration inspired by my #1 all-time favorite Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. So I'm going to do a little depiction of that infamous leg lamp, the major award. And then I really like that scene in the movie where Ralphie is just kind of like staring at the leg and his mom is just kind of like really unhappy about this situation. And so yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to depict, except I'm going to put Ralphie in the bunny pajamas, the pink nightmare. So not a scene that's actually from the movie, but I feel like these are the two most iconic things. Actually, that movie is just full of iconic scenes, I think. I actually spent a couple of weeks last year just illustrating all of my favorite scenes from this movie, and there were so many. I think that I ended up doing 10 illustrations, and I could have done so many more. I could have just like illustrated that entire movie. It's so fun. It's my favorite of all time. So I wasn't quite sure how, I was like just trying to draw that bunny pajama costume thing from my imagination. So I had to pause and actually go and look it up because I couldn't remember what the ears were like. And they just bizarrely stick up. So how that works on pajamas, I don't know, but it's pretty funny. So of course Ralphie has those big thick glasses, and I always kind of think of him as this like cherub faced little boy. And in fact, it's kind of funny because when my daughter was younger, she really kind of looked like Ralphie. Like she had a round face and blonde hair and big glasses and like big blue eyes. And we actually lived in Cleveland, Ohio for a while. And so we would go and visit the Christmas Story house where the film was actually made in Cleveland. At least parts of that film were made in Cleveland. So we would go there, and my dream in life was to be able to get her to dress up in like a bunny costume and go to that house so I could take her picture, but it just never panned out. So I never got to have that dream fulfilled. And now, I don't know, maybe I could talk her into doing it, but she's almost 16, so I don't know. Maybe like when she's 20, she'll have a little bit more of a sense of humor for that sort of thing. Who knows? Anyway, so yeah, I really like how this turned out. And basically my goal for the watercolor portion of this was I really wanted that leg lamp to look like it's glowing. And then I wanted to get a really nice pink for his bunny suit. And that was a challenge because I am trying to clear out my palette. So I'm trying to use up all of the paints that are in the wells currently on my palette, because in the future when I make videos, I want to only have colors on my palette that I'm actually using for that demonstration. So far, I just kind of fill up my palette with every color that I have, and then there's a lot of colors I don't use at all, and it's kind of difficult to explain which colors I'm using because you can't really tell just by looking at them in the palette. So I just figured I would simplify that, and I kind of needed to do that anyway. So the challenge though with the pink is that I only had one red, and it isn't the red that I would typically go to get a pink color. I think I would ideally like to use my permanent rose. That's kind of my magenta red, my cool red, and it makes a really nice pink. But all I have on my palette right now is pyrrole red, which is kind of a medium red. It's very, very strong. And then I also have a red called Scarlet Lake, and it's more of like a very warm red, so almost like leaning toward orange. And so that's not really ideal for making pink. So, you know, I just kind of went with it and improvised, and I think it turned out pretty good. I feel like because I used such a limited color palette, I actually got a lot of color harmony in this piece. So there's going to be a lot of yellows, reds, violets. The first thing that I'm doing, oh, and by the way, I just went ahead and outlined everything with a micron pen, which has waterproof ink in it, so you can use watercolor on top of it and it won't smudge. And now I am using my cobalt blue and my Payne's gray to get a really nice dark, as though it's nighttime outside. And so that's going to be the color that sort of frames the legs. So we're on the inside of the house looking out and it's nighttime. And it's important if you want something to look like it's glowing. Well, I guess you could probably get away with not having a dark background, but it definitely helps. If you want something to look really bright and like it's glowing, it helps to use a very dark background to contrast it against. And notice that I did not draw in the fringe that is on the skirt or the lampshade of the leg lamp. I'm just going to do that a little bit later because I felt like it might just be a little bit distracting to do it now. So I'm just kind of blocking in this dark outside against the leg, just kind of being careful to go around all of the contours. And now while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of my first lay-in or wash of the background. And I'm just going to start with this warm yellow. And I decided I needed some paper to guard my workspace. Typically, I will tape things down. You've probably noticed. This time I didn't, just because it's a relatively small piece of paper. I can't remember exactly how big it is, but it's a little bit smaller than I typically work. It's just a little bit bigger than the Christmas cards that I have been making, and those are 6 inches tall, 4 inches wide. So this is probably 7 inches tall, actually. All right, so after I put in the yellow and while it was still wet, I went in with my red so that I could get some nice soft edges. And this is going to be important to kind of help with that glowing effect too. So I'm painting this as though the leg lamp is kind of illuminating the curtains. I'm not really giving the curtains their own color per se. I'm just allowing the light of the lamp to color those curtains. And again, I'm keeping everything very simple. I'm not worried about being true to life at all. So for the leg lamp, I'm going to go ahead and put in this wash of the warm yellow. And then while it's still wet, you'll see that I'll use my paper towel just to dab a little bit out of the center. That's where the light bulb is. And then on the underside of the lampshade too, I'm just going to lighten that up a little bit. There we go. And now while that is still wet, I want to go ahead and start adding in a little bit of orange. And it will just, the orange will kind of be a little bit further away from where the light bulb is. And we're not going to use much of that orange at all. And if we use any just pure red on the lamp, it'll be very, very minimal. So you can see that this is already giving that leg lamp a nice little glow. Then just adding a little bit more yellow around the edges of the under part of the lampshade as well. And then I'm also going to paint her leg in a way that kind of indicates a little bit of a glow. And I realized that I forgot this little piece right under the high heel where the dark sky or the dark outside should be showing through. Okay, so now I've got just some pure pyrrole red, and I'll use this very, very minimally on this lampshade, just on the very, very outer edges. And now I'm kind of toying around with exactly what color I'm going to use to paint the leg. And at first I started just kind of mixing almost a more natural skin tone, but I decided against that. So I'm going to start with just some really bright and saturated warm yellow up at the top. And then as we move away from the light source, the light bulb, the leg will just get a little bit darker. So now I'm adding in some of that red while the yellow is still wet and working my way down. And we'll get some even brighter red. And then down at the very bottom part of the leg, like the ankle area, it's going to be almost like a dark violet. So I'm just grabbing some of that blue that was already on my palette, on my mixing palette. And then that's what I used for the very bottom part. And for now, I'm not going to paint the shoe. I think I do that a little bit later. But I'm just basically going to use my Payne's Gray, I believe, to paint that. And then this little stand that the lamp is on, I'm just going to kind of paint that orange on top and then a little bit darker around the sides. So I'll use that same color that I used for the bottom of the lamp, just to paint the sides. And really, like, my decision making regarding color for this illustration is being guided mostly by just wanting to use a very simple color palette, and so I want to reuse my mixes as much as I can. So any mix that I already have on my palette, I want to either kind of replicate that and replenish those colors so that they can be used throughout the illustration, or I'll just use what is already there and just try to find different ways to integrate that. So for Ralphie's face, I'm just going to keep it very light, just some yellow and a touch of red, and then I'm going to give him some rosy cheeks and kind of a rosy red nose. So while his face is still wet, I'm just going to drop in a little bit of red here. So I put in just a little bit of red on both his cheeks and then just a little dab on his nose. And since that is all wet, I will just let that kind of integrate and mingle as it will. And then I decided just to leave his glasses white. So that's just kind of a stylistic choice. And I tend to like to do that with glasses. I like to really give them like a thick, glassy, glary look just by leaving them white. So that is just a choice that I made. It's not necessarily the right choice. It's just how I like to do it. And then I realized I forgot a little bit of yellow behind his ears. And now I'm just kind of going to the frame, the wood around the window, and just kind of touching that up a little bit. But I'm not going to worry too much about the background. The background is really just there to contrast with the light source and to emphasize that glow from the lamp. And then I needed to clear off my palette a little bit so I could get a nice pink color for Ralphie's pink nightmare pajamas. And right now, I know I'm just kind of experimenting with this. So I'm using the pyrrole red and I'm just kind of seeing how light I can get it. And I don't remember if this made it on camera, but I'm just testing that color on a little piece of watercolor paper off to the side and seeing how it looks on him. That looked a little dark, so I basically dipped my brush into my water so that it would dilute that pigment a little bit more. And I'm just going to apply an even wash of this all over the bunny suit. And then while it is still wet, I will drop in some accents of deeper red, and then that contrast will also kind of just help the majority of this little bunny costume pajama thing to look a little bit more pink. So just applying this light wash of the pyrrole red all over. And now, while that is still wet, I will want to get a little bit more pigment on my brush, and just in a few select areas, I'll apply a little bit of a stronger red, just to, you know, contrast with that pink, and then also to imply a little bit of form. And it also, I think, helps make Ralphie look like, you know, the light from the lamp is also shining on him. So he's going to be a little bit lighter on the parts of the bunny pajamas that are facing the lamp, and then a little bit darker or deeper red on the parts that are occluded. And then I'm just going to let that dry naturally. Just let the colors mingle as they will. A little bit more cobalt blue into that red. And now I'm going to work a little bit more on the background. So I'm going to use this muted violet to indicate some of the darker areas and the folds on the curtains. And this, again, is kind of just by design to help emphasize the glow from the light. So I need to have a little bit of dark in this background so that the light from the lamp is emphasized a little bit more. So I'm trying to think of, you know, some of the folds on the curtains are catching a little bit of light, especially as they get closer to the lamp, and then the folds that are further from the lamp, I'll place more of this muted violet. And then same for the wall. And then on this, I actually am going to end up just using a knife to crop this illustration because I really didn't see any point or, you know, any value in painting a bottom half or bottom part for this illustration. So I just ended up with a piece of paper that was a little bit longer than what I actually needed it for, because I didn't really want to draw like the table that the lamp is standing on. It just seemed like it would end up being a distraction. Definitely not the focal point of the painting or the illustration. Now I'm just kind of emphasizing a few areas, adding some dry brush here and there where I want a little bit more emphasis. Going in with some even darker purples and violets on the outer edges here. And now I'm going to use that Payne's Gray and my Cobalt Blue, and I'm going to just really get this nice and pigmented, very dark, so I can make this shoe. My concern with the shoe was just that it was going to end up kind of being the same color as the outside of the window. So what I'll do to remedy that is just use a little bit of my white gel pen around that shoe to help it just be distinguished from that dark background. So here is where I'm going to just crop off about an inch from the bottom of this little illustration. And that looks much better. Now I'm using my micron pen to add some fringe. I think actually for the fringe, maybe I would have rather just used my dip pen. I would have gotten some bolder marks. And it kind of bothered me too that the black marks obviously aren't really going to show up against that dark background. So I will also use my white gel pen just to accentuate the fringe that's kind of overlapped with that dark background. And then I'm just going to scribble in the top of that stocking, and I'm going to make his glasses a little bit thicker. And by the way, I think I forgot to mention, but there is a template available for this little illustration. It is free for you. So if you go to the link in the description, you'll be able to download that free template. All you have to do to download it from my Gumroad page is when it asks you to like name a fair price, I don't remember how it's worded, you just put 0 in there and then you get that template for free. Of course, if you want to leave me a tip, that's always welcome and very appreciated. All right, so you can see that I used that white gel pen to add a little bit of accent to the fringe, overlapping the dark background, and then also to help that stiletto shoe stand out a little bit more. And that is basically it. So I hope that you guys really liked this tutorial. This, as I said, is my all-time favorite Christmas movie. I think it is so hilarious. It makes me laugh so much. And I will probably end up just watching it on repeat closer to Christmas while I paint. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope that you will give this little illustration a try. And if you would be so kind, I would love it if you would subscribe, not describe. Subscribe to my channel if you want, or you can describe it. And if you like my videos, I hope that you'll give them a little thumbs up. Apparently that helps. I'm really enjoying doing these little videos for you guys, and I love it when you guys leave me comments. I always respond to those. All right, that's it. Have a great day, and goodbye.